July 8, 2003. A quiet evening at a Little Caesars pizzeria in San Jose, California. The phone rings, just another order, another customer. But when the cashier answers, the voice on the other end chills them to the bone. Not the usual request for pepperoni or breadsticks, but the shaky, whispered voice of a little girl, barely holding herself together as she painstakingly spells out her address, one trembling letter at a time. The cashier listens, confused. Why is a child calling for pizza like this? Why does she sound so afraid? What they don't realize, could never have imagined, is that this little girl isn't just placing an order. She's fighting for her life. For 3 agonizing days, 9-year-old Jeanette Tamayo had been trapped in a nightmare. Kidnapped, assaulted, and held prisoner by a monster. And this phone call? This was her desperate, last-ditch attempt to reach the outside world. Her only hope. But how did she get here? And more importantly, could she survive? This is the story of 9-year-old Jeanette Tamayo, a girl who turned fear into courage, outsmarted her abductor, and helped police bring him to justice. A typical Tuesday afternoon in Silicon Valley, sun-drenched streets, kids laughing as school buses unloaded. 9-year-old Jeanette Tamayo stepped onto the sidewalk, backpack bouncing, completely unaware that every step toward her house brought her closer to a predator lying in wait. The first sign something was wrong? The screen door, slightly ajar. Not unheard of, but strange enough to make her pause. Maybe mom came home early? But the house was too quiet. No TV, no radio, just an eerie stillness as she stepped inside. Then the crunch of broken glass under her shoes. Her bedroom window smashed, shards glittering like jagged teeth across the carpet. The phone, its cord sliced clean through. A sharp knock at the door. Her heart pounded as she turned to see a stranger's face pressed against the screen, eyes scanning the room behind her. Something about his smile wasn't right. Instinct screamed at her to slam the door shut, but before she could, a hand shot through the gap. Fingers clamped around the frame. The door wrenched open with terrifying force. And just like that, childhood innocence shattered as violently as that bedroom window. What happened next defies comprehension. Some truths are too dark to voice aloud, some wounds too deep to expose to the light of retelling. Out of profound respect for Jeanette's courage and the sanctity of her healing, we will not give voice to the specific horrors inflicted upon this child. But understand this with absolute clarity, in those nightmarish moments, innocence was violated in ways that leave permanent scars on the human soul. She was assaulted with calculated cruelty. Cold metal handcuffs bit into her small wrists as her captor dragged her toward his waiting car, her body trembling, her mind racing for any possible escape. And in a cruel twist of timing, just as the garage door groaned open, just as her abductor forced her into the vehicle, 2 familiar figures appeared like ghosts in the driveway, her mother Rosalia and 15-year-old brother Paul. Arriving home at the worst possible moment. Jeanette's wide, terrified eyes locked with theirs through the car window, a silent scream passing between them. In that fractured second, 3 lives changed forever, a daughter witnessing her family's horror, a mother seeing her child in mortal danger, a brother realizing his little sister was being stolen away before his eyes. The clock was ticking. The nightmare was accelerating. And Jeanette Tamayo was about to disappear into the unknown. Paul didn't hesitate. The second he saw his little sister trapped in that car, his body moved before his mind could catch up, snatching a screwdriver from the garage workbench, charging forward with a raw, primal scream. He swung wildly, aiming for the man's throat, but the attacker was faster. A brutal counterstrike. A sickening crunch of fist meeting bone. Paul crumpled to the concrete, his nose shattered, vision swimming as the monster turned toward their mother. Rosalia lunged, nails raking at the man's eyes, but he grabbed the nearest weapon, a cast-iron frying pan from the kitchen. The first swing caught her across the temple. The second, a vicious downward arc, split her brow wide open. Blood sprayed across the garage floor as she collapsed, her desperate wails echoing off the walls. Inside the car, Jeanette slammed her cuffed hands against the window, screaming soundlessly as she watched her family being destroyed. Then the ignition snarled to life. Tires screeched. The vehicle lurched backward, throwing her against the seat as the world outside became a blur of motion. One last, harrowing image burned into her mind. Her mother, barely conscious, crawling through a smear of her own blood, one trembling hand reaching out as her voice tore through the neighborhood, "Help me. Someone call the police." Then darkness. The turn of a corner. And just like that, Jeanette Tamayo was gone. The first patrol units arrived to a house of horrors. Blood streaked across the garage floor in dark, smeared arcs. Shards of broken glass glittered beneath the shattered bedroom window like 1,000 accusing eyes. The phone cord hung in limp, severed coils, a silent testament to the predator's calculated brutality. Detective Heather Randall stepped through the carnage, her sharp gaze missing nothing. No clear suspect. No vehicle description. No license plate. Just a missing child and a ticking clock. Without these critical details, the system's hands were tied. No Amber Alert would blare across California tonight. Yet amid the blood and broken glass, something else caught Randall's attention: the Tamayo family's unbroken resolve. Rosalia, face swollen and stitched, clutching Jeanette's school photo like a sacred relic. Paul, his teenage fists still clenched around the screwdriver he'd wielded in defense of his sister. Their silent, tear-streaked determination spoke louder than any press conference ever could. This wasn't just another case file. This was their little girl. And Detective Randall made them a promise, not with empty platitudes, but with the quiet intensity of a woman who'd move heaven and earth to bring one child home. The hunt for Jeanette Tamayo had begun. Asterisk. Rosalia's broken body lay on the stretcher, her face a mask of blood and bruises. Yet her trembling hands clutched at the detective's sleeve with surprising strength. Each labored breath formed the same desperate plea in broken English. "Find my baby. Please. My Jeanette." The paramedics tried to restrain her, but a mother's terror knows no bounds. Even as the sedative coursed through her veins, her fading whisper cut deeper than any scream. "She's just a little girl." The statistics hung heavy in the room. A suffocating truth every officer knew but couldn't voice. 48 hours. The golden window. After that, missing children become memorial candles, their faces frozen in school photos on milk cartons. The math was cruel but undeniable. Yet, in some locked room miles away, Jeanette Tamayo was rewriting the odds. While detectives scanned grainy security footage, she studied her captor's habits. While forensic teams dusted for prints, she memorized every turn in the road. And when her abductor handed her a phone to order pizza, this 9-year-old girl saw something the grown-ups missed. Not just a meal, but a lifeline. The predator had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the quiet fury of a child fighting to go home. Asterisk. Inside that locked room, Jeanette made a terrifying calculation. Survival meant playing the perfect victim. With every car ride, her small fingers secretly counted turns. When he carelessly left his watch on the nightstand, she palmed it with quiet precision. The toy turtle? Not a gift, but evidence pressed with fingerprints. Even the pizza order became her secret weapon, every digit of the phone number etched into her memory like a lifeline. Then came the moment that turned her blood to ice, her abductor casually tossing a missing person flyer onto the bed, her own innocent face staring back. The unspoken message was clear: "You're already a ghost." But Jeanette Tamayo was no ghost. She was a storm gathering strength. As her captor turned away, she did something extraordinary. With shaking hands, she folded that flyer and tucked it beneath her shirt. Not just as proof, but as a promise. This face on the paper? She was coming home. Asterisk. 3 days. 72 hours of calculated terror. Then, without warning, the car door slammed open. Cold night air hit Jeanette's face as her abductor dragged her into the neon glow of a liquor store parking lot. His grip tightened, yanking her close. "Listen carefully. I'm letting you go. But if you ever speak my name, if you even whisper what happened," his breath reeked of cigarettes and rage, "I will find your mother. I will break your brother's bones one by one. And you? You'll watch." Asterisk. Then the engine roared. Tires screeched. The taillights vanished into the darkness. For one frozen second, Jeanette stood paralyzed. Then survival instinct kicked in hard. Her bare feet slapped against asphalt as she sprinted for the store's glowing entrance. Blood crusted her clothes. Handcuff bruises ringed her wrists like grotesque jewelry. The clerk looked up and in that split second recognized the face from every news broadcast. "You're the missing girl." Jeanette collapsed against the counter, gasping a single word that shattered the nightmare. "Help!" Asterisk. The clerk's eyes widened in shock. "My God, you're the girl from TV." Asterisk, his voice cracking with disbelief. Within minutes, flashing lights bathed the parking lot in red and blue as squad cars screeched to a halt. Officers swarmed Jeanette not as a victim but as the key to justice. But this 9-year-old girl didn't just whisper fragments of her ordeal. With trembling hands, she grabbed a detective's notepad and sketched every detail: street signs, the cracked porch step, the attic where he hid his weapons. Her finger stabbed at the paper. "This is where he kept me." Then, with chilling clarity, she recited his phone number from memory. Detectives exchanged stunned glances. This child hadn't just survived, she'd investigated her own kidnapping. And now, with SWAT teams mobilizing, Jeanette Tamayo was about to deliver the final blow. From the back of a patrol car, her small voice cutting through the radio static: "Turn left here. His house is next to the big tree." The hunter had become the hunted. Asterisk. The SWAT team moved like shadows through the predator's house, flashlights cutting through the darkness, radios crackling with tension. Upstairs, floorboards creaked. A muffled gasp. David Montiel Cruz had barricaded himself in the attic, just as Jeanette said he would. Then the growl. K-9 units surged forward, their snarls echoing through the rafters as Cruz screamed. No more hiding. No more threats. Just the satisfying clink of handcuffs, the same cold metal he'd once clamped around a child's wrists, now biting into his own. At the sentencing, Jeanette stood tall. No longer a victim in a hospital gown, but a warrior in a crisp blazer. The judge's gavel fell like thunder: life in prison. No parole. And as Cruz was led away in chains, one truth became undeniable: this monster had chosen the wrong girl. Because Jeanette Tamayo wasn't just brave. She was unstoppable. Asterisk. Years later, Jeanette still carries the scars, but she refused to let them define her. She studied criminal justice, determined to help others like Detective Randall helped her. Her message: no matter what life throws at you, you are a fighter. And Jeanette Tamayo? She's living proof.